Imagine standing at the edge of a hole in the ground. It's narrow, dark, and from somewhere deep below, a faint warmth rises against your face, air that hasn't touched the surface of the earth in 30,000 years. You don't know it yet, but what lies beneath will challenge everything you thought you knew about life. This is Romania, 1986. The Cold War is ending. The world is changing. And beneath the soil of the southeastern plains, workers are searching for new land to build a power plant. They're looking for stability, solid ground. Instead, they find a crack, a fissure, a doorway, and when scientists finally lower themselves into that darkness, they discover something that shouldn't be possible. An entire world, thriving, evolving, alone. This is the story of Movil Cave, and the creatures inside that have rewritten the rules of biology. Movil Cave sits in one of the most unassuming places on Earth. No mountains, no dramatic cliffs, just flat, dry land near the Black Sea coast. For millions of years, it remained hidden, sealed, forgotten. But here's what makes this cave different. It wasn't sealed by a rock slide or an earthquake, it was sealed by time itself. Around 5.5 million years ago, long before humans, before the Ice Age, before mammoths walked the Earth, this cave became completely cut off from the surface, water stopped flowing in, air stopped circulating, the entrance collapsed, buried under clay and limestone, and whatever was inside stayed inside. For context, 30,000 years ago, Neanderthals still roamed Europe. Cave paintings were being drawn in France, humans hadn't yet invented agriculture, written language, or the wheel, but beneath Romania, in absolute darkness, something else was happening. When Dr. Cristian Lascu and his team first descended into Movil in 1986, they didn't know what to expect. The air was different, thicker, warmer, the walls glistened with moisture, and the smell? Sulfuric, poisonous. The atmosphere inside the cave contains less than half the oxygen we breathe. It's saturated with hydrogen sulfide, a gas that, in high concentrations, can kill a human in minutes. And yet, life was everywhere. At first glance, the cave looks like it's covered in frost. Thin, ghostly mats cling to the rocks and float on the surface of underground lakes. But this isn't ice. It's alive. These are microbial mats, colonies of chemosynthetic bacteria. Unlike almost every other organism on Earth, they don't rely on sunlight. They don't need photosynthesis. Instead, they feed on sulfur and methane, pulling energy directly from the chemistry of the Earth itself. This is life without the sun. But bacteria weren't the only residents. Crawling through the darkness were creatures no one had ever seen before. Spiders with no eyes, centipedes with elongated bodies and ghostly white exoskeletons, scorpions that had never known light, isopods, ancient crustaceans moving slowly along the wet stone, 48 species in total, 33 of them found nowhere else on Earth. These weren't just rare, they were evolutionary orphans, isolated so long they had become something entirely new. Dr. Lascu described the moment in his field notes. It was as if we had opened a portal to another planet. Every surface moved, the silence of millennia broken by the scuttle of legs we could barely see. Dr. J. Colin Morrell, a microbiologist at the University of East Anglia, has studied extremophiles, organisms that survive in conditions that would kill most life. When asked about Movil Cave, he said, "What we're seeing here isn't just adaptation, it's a completely separate pathway of evolution. These organisms have been isolated for so long, they've developed biochemical processes we've never documented. They represent a second genesis, not of life itself, but of ecosystem structure. In the world above, energy flows like this. The sun provides light, plants convert it to sugar, animals eat the plants, predators eat the animals. Everything is connected by photosynthesis. But in Movil, there is no sun, so the base of the food chain isn't a plant, it's a bacteria, one that eats poison. These chemosynthetic microbes pull hydrogen sulfide from the water and air, strip away electrons, and use that energy to build organic molecules. It's a process similar to what happens near deep-sea hydrothermal vents, those alien-like volcanic chimneys at the bottom of the ocean where life thrives in crushing darkness. But here's the difference. The organisms at hydrothermal vents are connected, however distantly, to the surface world. Nutrients wash down, ocean currents flow, there's exchange. Movil had none of that. For 5.5 million years, it was a closed system, a biological time capsule. And somehow, it didn't collapse. Dr. Alexandra Maria Hillebrand Voiculescu, a Romanian biologist who has spent years studying the cave, offers this insight. What surprises me most isn't that life survived, it's that it diversified. Isolation usually leads to extinction. Small populations, low genetic diversity, no room for error, but Movol's ecosystem found balance. Predators and prey, scavengers and producers. It's a functioning world no larger than a subway tunnel, and it's been running perfectly for longer than our species has existed. Think about that. We've built cities, gone to the moon, split the atom, and beneath our feet, an entire kingdom of life was doing just fine without us. Close your eyes and try to picture it. You're 100 feet underground. The air is hot, around 25 degrees Celsius, and humid enough that every breath feels heavy. Your headlamp cuts through the darkness, but it only reaches a few meters. Beyond that, nothing. The walls are slick. Pale formations of limestone catch the light. Stalactites that have grown slower than mountains rise. Some are only a few centimeters long, even after a million years. Beneath your boots, the ground squelches. It's not mud, it's a living mat. Billions of microorganisms piled so thick they form a carpet. You step carefully, knowing that every footprint could destroy something irreplaceable. Ahead, the tunnel opens into a chamber. A small lake stretches out, its surface covered in a pale, oily sheen. Not pollution, biology. The bacteria here form floating rafts, drifting slowly in water that hasn't seen sunlight since the Pliocene epoch. You crouch down, shine your light into the water, and you see them. Creatures moving in slow motion, ghost white, eyeless. Their antennae sweep the water, searching for the faint chemical signals of food. They don't know you exist. To them, the universe is this lake, these rocks, the warmth rising from deep within the earth. They've never seen the sky, they don't know what the sun is, and they've survived generation after generation in a world we would consider uninhabitable. Now pull back, from the cave to the surface, to the atmosphere, to space. Look down at Earth, a blue marble spinning silently in the void. Somewhere on that surface, billions of humans go about their lives believing they understand what life requires. Sunlight, oxygen, water. But beneath their feet, in a pocket of stone no one knew existed, life found another way. And if it happened here, in the darkness of a Romanian cave, where else might it be happening? This is why Movol Cave matters. Not just because it's strange, not just because it's rare, but because it expands the envelope of possibility. For decades, scientists have speculated about life on Europa, one of Jupiter's moons. Beneath its frozen crust lies a vast ocean, warmed by tidal forces, rich in minerals and chemistry. But there's no sunlight down there. So for years, the question was, could life exist without it? Movol Cave answered that question. Yes. The same is true for Enceladus, Saturn's tiny moon, where geysers of water erupt from a hidden ocean beneath miles of ice. When NASA's Cassini spacecraft flew through those plumes, it detected organic molecules. Hydrogen. Methane. The building blocks. If bacteria in a cave can survive on sulfur and methane for millions of years, then life in the oceans of Enceladus isn't just possible. It's plausible. Dr. Penelope Boston, an astrobiologist and former director of NASA's Astrobiology Institute, has studied extreme environments around the world. She's explored lava tubes in New Mexico, ice caves in Antarctica, and acid rivers in Mexico, but Movol, she says, remains unique. This isn't just an isolated ecosystem, it's a proof of concept. It tells us that life doesn't need the conditions we thought were essential. It needs energy, chemistry, and time. Everything else is negotiable. And maybe that's the most humbling part. We spend so much time looking out, scanning distant stars, building telescopes, launching probes to the edges of the solar system, but we didn't even know about the world beneath our feet. A world that's been there, thriving, while empires rose and fell, while continents shifted, while our ancestors learned to walk upright and wondered for the first time what the stars were. Life was already out there, doing the impossible. We just had to find it. Let's talk about how this actually works. In a normal ecosystem, the equation is simple. Sunlight plus carbon dioxide plus water equals sugar plus oxygen. That's photosynthesis, the foundation of almost all life on Earth. But in Movol, there is no sunlight, so the equation changes. Hydrogen sulfide plus oxygen plus carbon dioxide equals sulfuric acid plus sugar. The bacteria in Movol use a process called chemosynthesis. They pull hydrogen sulfide from the cave's geothermal springs, combine it with the limited oxygen in the air, and produce energy. The byproduct? Sulfuric acid, which means the cave isn't just dark and oxygen poor, it's also acidic. And yet life adapts. The invertebrates that live here have evolved to feed on the bacterial mats. They scrape them off rocks, filter them from the water. Some species have specialized mouth parts designed specifically for this task, tools that exist nowhere else on Earth. Then come the predators, spiders, pseudoscorpions, centipedes. They don't hunt by sight, they have no eyes. Instead, they rely on vibration, chemical signals, and touch. Their bodies are elongated, their legs stretched out like sensors, feeling for the faint movements of prey in the dark. It's a slow ecosystem. Energy is scarce. Every calorie counts, but it works. Generation after generation, century after century, millennium after millennium, a functioning, self-sustaining world, no bigger than a tennis court hidden from the sun. But here's the tragic irony. The moment we discovered Mobile Cave, we endangered it. Every time a human enters, we bring contamination. Skin cells, bacteria from the surface, changes in air pressure and humidity. Our breath alone introduces foreign oxygen and carbon dioxide into an atmosphere that hasn't changed in millions of years. Dr. Serban Sarbu, one of the cave's primary researchers, has spent decades trying to minimize the impact. Access is heavily restricted. Only a handful of scientists have ever been inside. Each expedition is carefully planned, suits are sterilized, and time inside is limited. But the damage, however small, is inevitable. Some microbial mats have thinned near the entry point. A few species seem less abundant than they were in the 1990s. It's impossible to say if we caused it. Natural fluctuations happen, ecosystems shift, but the question haunts every researcher who's been inside. Did discovering this place begin its destruction? It's a dilemma we face again and again. The more we explore, the more we learn, but the more we risk. Do we leave these places untouched, preserving them but learning nothing, or do we study them carefully, knowing that our presence alone might change them forever? There's no easy answer. Moville isn't alone. Around the world, scientists have found life in places it shouldn't be. Beneath Antarctica's ice, in Lake Vostok, a body of water that's been sealed off for 15 million years, microbial life thrives in freezing darkness. At the bottom of the ocean, near volcanic vents where water reaches 400 degrees Celsius, entire ecosystems flourish. Tube worms, blind shrimp, bacterial colonies feeding on chemicals spewing from the Earth's crust. In Chile's Atacama Desert, the driest place on Earth, bacteria survive in salt deposits and beneath rocks, enduring years without rain. And perhaps most incredibly, deep inside South African gold mines, more than 2 miles underground, scientists have found bacteria living in rock fractures, feeding on radioactive uranium decay, life feeding on radiation, life in boiling acid, life in frozen darkness. But Mobile remains special because it's not just surviving, it's thriving. An entire food web, predators and prey, balance and diversity, all in a space you could walk across in under a minute. There's something deeply humbling about Mobile Cave. We like to think we understand life, we categorize it, study it, break it down into cells and DNA and chemical reactions. But Mobile reminds us how much we don't know. For millions of years, this ecosystem existed without us. It didn't need our discovery to validate it. It didn't need our science to explain it. It simply was. And when we finally found it, we realized the rules we thought were universal, sunlight, oxygen, open systems, were just the rules of our world. Not the only world, not even the most resilient one. What does that say about us? About the limits of our imagination? If we missed an entire ecosystem on our own planet, how much are we missing in the universe? How many moons, how many planets, how many pockets of chemistry and time are out there right now, hosting life we can't even begin to imagine? Life that doesn't need what we need. Life that thrives in conditions we'd call impossible. We don't know. And maybe that's the point. In 1986, a team of workers in Romania found a crack in the ground. They didn't know it would rewrite biology. They didn't know it would change the way we search for life on other worlds. They just knew it was unusual, and that was enough. Today, Mobile Cave remains one of the most protected sites on Earth. Access is forbidden without special permission. The creatures inside continue their ancient rhythms, unaware of the scientific revolutions they've sparked. And somewhere, deep beneath the surface, in the warmth and the darkness, life continues. Not because we're watching, not because we understand, but because life finds a way, even in the impossible places, especially in the impossible places. If discoveries like this fascinate you, if you want to keep exploring the edges of what we know, subscribe, leave a comment, tell me what you think, because the universe is just getting started.